Well, hello and welcome to this episode of the Terri Cole Show that I'm going to start with a question. Father's Day is upon us. Are you one of those people that you go into the store because you feel like you have to get a card, but none of the cards make any sense? Or are you so far gone with your relationship with your father that you wouldn't even get a card, or maybe your father is absent? If you're nodding your head yes, then this episode, my friend, is for you. I'm going to be sharing 5 non-traditional ways to celebrate Father's Day if Father's Day kind of gets you down. So before we get started, if you're new to my channel, please introduce yourself in the comments, say hello, we're a friendly bunch, and make sure that you hit the bell and subscribe so you don't miss a thing, because I roll out 2 new episodes a week and I wouldn't want you to miss anything. If you don't know me, my name is Terri Cole. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a relationship expert, and the author of Boundary Boss, which you can get at boundarybossbook.com. I want to say thank you for all your questions and your comments. You know, I read them all, and I love to highlight them. So today I'm highlighting one from Elizabeth Garceline on the episode called The 50 Shades of Pathological Narcissism with Ross Rosenberg. Elizabeth says, so much of Dr. Rosenberg's interview was an aha moment for me and helps me understand why us codependents are drawn to those narcissistic relationships. Thank you for the resources to help identify the core reasons why codependency happens. Your channel has been so helpful for my journey to move forward as a healthy new me. Well, Elizabeth, I'm so happy that you're here. And thank you for saying so. All right, now let's move on to today's content. Personally, if you know me, you might know. If you've read this book, then you do know. I had a very complicated relationship with my father, who is now has passed away many years ago. But Father's Day was always one of those experiences for me that was kind of painful. That example I gave at the top, I would go into the store and they'd be like, oh, Dad, you were always there for me. You're so amazing, cheering me on. And that was not accurate for me. I could never find a Father's Day card that made sense or that represented what my experience was with my father. My father was emotionally very distant. He was unavailable. He was a workaholic. He was a high-functioning alcoholic. And so there wasn't time. I mean, I tell the story, and it's true, that by the time my parents got divorced when I was about 13, I can honestly say that I might have exchanged 100 words with my father in my entire life. And that might be an exaggeration. Maybe it was less than that. I was the youngest of 4 daughters. My father was a guy who probably would have done better if he had a son or 2, I think, because he was an athlete. He went to college on a full scholarship. All of the reasons why. But what I can tell you is that having a father wound, which I do, is something that impacts our lives. And so if Father's Day is painful for you, there are things that you can do to celebrate either the father figures in your life, or let's start with number 1. If you had one adult in your life who showed up for you. So for me, on Father's Day, I celebrate my mother, because she was mother and father. By the time I got married, actually, my dad had just passed away. But, I mean, I guess he would have walked me down the aisle, but my mother walked me down the aisle, which was very apt, because she was the present one in all of our lives, all the time, did all the things, was always there. So the first idea that I have is celebrate whoever adult parent, let's say it was your mother, if she showed up for you, celebrate her on Father's Day, right? Call her, do something, take her out to brunch, because that's a lot of work. To do the work of especially the emotional work of a mother and a father, that is a lot of work. And for my mother, she did a lot of work, and I do celebrate her on Father's Day. The second thing that you can think about doing is think about the father figures who came into your life. Usually when there's some kind of an absence, there's a tendency for us to find father figures to replace. I was always seeking men who were emotionally accessible, people who were affectionate, who I felt comfortable around instead of afraid around. And that was incredibly, we call that an emotionally corrective experience. So I would have friends in college. My best friend, Lisa Venturino, her father was funny and sweet and Italian. So he was very like effusive emotionally, always saying, I love you. And that was a very corrective emotional experience for me, to be in a household with a father figure that nobody was afraid of. They respected him, but they weren't afraid of him. And it was such a new experience for me. And that was a very important relationship for me. And also my college boyfriend had a very accessible, loving sweetheart of a dad. And again, I was seeking what was missing in my relationship with my father. So you can think about it in your own life. Did you have a loving uncle or a family friend? One of your friends' fathers? Did they sort of fill in that role for you? Because you can write them Father's Day cards. You can write them notes. You can celebrate them and let them know how much it meant to you. Because so much of the time, we keep our own stories sort of inside, and we think that other people may know that we feel that way. But when it comes to appreciation and gratitude, it is so important. It's so valuable for us to share how we feel. That person, my friend's dad, was just doing what he does, but I love to give him props for doing it because it was so much more than that to me. It was incredibly meaningful and healing. So anyway, second idea is write cards or notes to any of the replacement. And maybe you had a grandparent who was amazing to you. There's a lot of people who fill in when there's a void in our lives. So let's acknowledge them. You can celebrate them. The third idea is if you have a child with someone, right? If you're married and your partner is a good father, then what about really celebrating? Now, listen, we do that, of course. When you have kids, we celebrate, we have them write little cards to the father, but really get into that celebration and look at what you were able to do. It is so healing when we cannot pass that father wound on to the next generation. We have to heal our own, of course, but if you chose a partner who can show up in a way that your father didn't, that is really something to celebrate. So yes, it's celebrating your partner and their fathering capabilities, but it's also celebrating you and your ability to choose well, and you did something different and you're stopping that cycle. Like your child won't have the same experience that you had if you had an absent or an abusive or narcissistic father, if you did not choose that in a partner, which really is something to full on celebrate. The next thought is, what about having a really beautiful self-love date, right? What about simply celebrating and loving on you? You made it. You survived, regardless of how competent or incompetent the adults were in your life. Here you are, watching this on YouTube or listening to this podcast, wanting to do it better. You are on a journey, and you are worthy of love. Here's the mind F with a father wound or a mother wound. What gets planted is this sense that we're unworthy. Right? There's no way to get around that if you have a father wound in particular, because that's what we're talking about today, that as a child, you think, if I were better, my father would make time for me. If something were different, right? If I were different, if I were good enough, if I were a better student. I mean, I was so part of what my father's absence did for me or inspired for me was achieving, right? I was like, if I just do all the things, if I just achieve, if I just get good grades, if I'm just super ambitious, because my father was successful business-wise, I thought that would be a way to get his attention. And it was, because we all knew, my sisters and I all knew, that he valued good grades. So good grades was something. And then to have a good career, to get out there and make money and do something that was important. And I remember when I was switching careers from being a talent agent, which I did for a bunch of years before I went back to grad school at NYU to become a therapist. And I remember calling my father and saying, hey, basically I'm going to quit my job and go to NYU to become a therapist. And he was very much like, sounds weird. Why would you do that? Right? Because I had achieved a lot of success in the world of entertainment. And he was like, I don't get it. And I was so grateful he didn't have to get it. I was like, well, Dad, it sounds weird to you, but I'm not happy in this world. And that actually matters to me. I mean, eventually he got on board and was very supportive of it. But I think a lot of times with parents, especially ones like the way my father was, very achievement oriented, he didn't want me to do anything that I would lose security in life. He was all about do the conservative path, which always made me know he didn't know me, because I was like, if you knew me, you'd know I need to do the heart path. I need to do the thing that lights me up. It can't just be the safe thing, because that comfort zone becomes a comfortable prison. As we all know, that is incredibly possible and incredibly common if we're constantly so afraid to get out of the comfort zone. Anyway, moving on to the worthiness piece. In that self-celebration, self-love day, do something that makes you feel good. Even if you just get dressed up, go out, take yourself out to a beautiful brunch. Make yourself a beautiful, luxurious bath. I mean, I know my self-love stuff is kind of always the same because it's the stuff I actually do for myself. You come up with. Maybe take yourself out for 9 holes of golf if that's something that feels good to you. Or go shopping. Or there's a million things that you can think of that make you feel good. Watch a movie that you love. Nap all day. Read a book that you love. Things that you don't normally sort of allow yourself to do, but we're doing it in celebration of self-love. Because, hey, baby, you made it. You're still here, regardless of how anyone showed up for you or how anyone failed you in your childhood. Here you are, still doing the thing and doing the hard thing, which is to keep going and to keep seeking and to keep wanting to grow and to change and to be healthier in our lives. And if that wasn't something you were interested in, I doubt you'd be listening to this podcast right now or watching this YouTube video. Okay, moving into the last idea, the last thought I have for you on this is create a gathering with your chosen family. Here's the amazing thing about being grown up. We get to choose. The incredibly frustrating thing about being a kid of a disappointing parent, whether it's deeply disappointing because they're verbally, emotionally, sexually abusive, whether it's emotionally disappointing because they're not there or they completely abandoned you, you get to choose your family now. And that is a beautiful liberation to have. So think about who are the people, make a whole list of the people in your life who are, as my teacher and my friend David G would say, like who's in your front row? Who's cheering you on? Who wants you to win? Those are the people who are your chosen family. Those are the people who should be in the VIP section of your life. And on Father's Day, if it's a disappointing or painful day for you, maybe gather with people who are emotionally safe, who really know you and love you, and people that you know and love. And the last thought I have for Father's Day, if you have a complicated relationship to your father, or your father figure, or you had a completely absent father figure, is the last thought of what you can do for yourself is ignore it altogether. Like, you don't have to celebrate Father's Day. You can look at it like any other day and just let it go by. But you know what? I'd rather you choose to celebrate you, even if you don't want to do any of the other ideas that I had in this episode. I mean, but it's up to you. What is less painful for you to do? But I think self-celebration and self-love is always appropriate. Who couldn't use more of that? I feel like we all need more of that. And if you are really suffering from a father wound, I actually have a really great course you can check out, terricole.com/father wound. And I'll give you this information in this episode in a guide, and I'll give you the father wound course stuff in the guide as well. So go to terricole.com/guide for the list of things that I shared with you in this episode. And here's the last thing I want to say. You are worthy, regardless of who raised you or didn't raise you. You are worthy of love, respect, of being cherished, of kindness, of consideration, of compassion. And all of those things must start with you treating yourself with love, kindness, compassion, consideration. Because that then tells the rest of the world, hey, this is how it is. Right? This is how I am to be treated, because it is how I treat myself. So I hope that this added value to your life. I hope you guys have an amazing week celebrating you. And as always, take care of you.